Okay, cool.
Oh,
Well, welcome to Third Eye Wellness, Natalie. Uh,
thank you, Jamie.
I will also I'll link all of your info in the comments and stuff like that so people can check out
Oh,
your YouTube because I think it's really interesting. Um, but the reason why I wanted to talk to you is because I find uh, tarot really interesting because it kind of spider webs into so many different things as well.
yes.
So the first thing that I would like you to kind of describe is what was the thing that attracted you to tarot in the first place?
Well, I went through a heavy breakup, and where I had started to become aware of behaviors within myself that were um, kind of driving wedges between the partners and I that I had, you know, been with up until that point. And after that breakup, I had decided to take some time to just heal and understand myself better. And so I started getting into reading more. And I've always been interested in uh, fantasy and Halloween and just like the magic of life. So I actually really love decorating as well. It's one of the things I really love to do. So I actually picked up a book that I got from Barnes and Nobles like 10 years before this point in my life called, what was it called? The Modern Guide to Witchcraft by, I think it's Sky Alexander. And I just started reading it, just thinking it was going to be fun, right? Some lightness, just, and I started, the more I read into the book, I realized, wow, this is not it's not woo-woo or fake. And the book was actually a prop that I got for Halloween decor. And I just put it away in my Halloween bin every day or every year. And the more I started to read it, it was just like, wow, this is talking about real stuff. And it just kind of like pulled me in and I was captivated by it. And there's always been a curiosity in me to want to know how everything is connected. Why you feel good when you're in nature. Why, when you visualize certain things, they happen. And I just wanted to understand the connectivity and the web of everything. And so this kind of was like a first step down that path. And the book came across, or it mentioned in it, tarot. And so I went and got a deck and just started delving into and reading and learning as much as I can. And as a Sagittarius, that just was like medicine for my soul, you know? So that's kind of how it started, is
It's
self-reflection.
it's funny that you say that all of this started with a breakup or something having to do with a relationship because I find that it's a common theme with so many people that
Yeah.
a really intense relationship can the whatever happened in that situation can send them off in a direction. So,
Yes.
and that's a lot of tarot has to do with your relationship to everything. So, um, I find
Yes.
that very interesting. So, and you said that you wanted to understand how everything's interconnected, which
Hmm.
I think is part of how you have to look at tarot. You have
Yeah.
to kind of look into aspects of astrology and birth charts and everything thereafter. So, could you kind of shine a light on that a little bit?
There is an endless hole that you can go down when it comes to tarot and the symbolism and everything that can be found in the imagery. It is astrology, there's Hermetic principles, there's Egyptian symbolism, there's Christian references, there's colors, there's numerology, there's it's like a, a playland for me, like a theme park. Like you delve into one and you think you know this area of it well, and then you just get hit with like how much you don't know. And so that was like something I was thinking about as you asked me to do this, and I'm just like, do I even know enough? But then I had to remind my ego, yes, this is a never-ending journey of just learning, and you're going to keep learning as long as you pursue it until the day you leave this physical body. So, yeah, there's a lot in it. The tarot speaks in symbolism, um, and imagery, and that I've found for me is how I read it. Um, a lot. I mean, I will admit, like, I don't even have memorized the major arcana, like, numbered cards. I just see imagery and I see numbers, and I say what comes to me, and that can be just feelings or thoughts, or images can pop into my mind, or songs. It's pretty incredible. Give me some direction on what you're wondering about with it.
Well, like what you just said was really interesting to me because saying that, okay, you don't even have stuff memorized, but you're so in tune that uh, you can just kind of go within and pick up on certain symbolism that comes to you. And I think that's very important. It's it's an important thing to make a correlation to that the way that tarot works is through symbolism. And what it actually does is it kind of teaches you to notice symbolism in your own life, which means if you're really tuned into yourself, the real you, the real you's trying to speak to you through symbolism and certain
Yes.
situations and synchronicities and so on and so forth, trying to like bash you over the head with, hey, I keep doing this, so if you don't notice this, this is why it keeps happening to you,
Yep.
you know? So, what would what would be an example of maybe a situation like that some symbolism was coming out so prevalent in your life that you knew that it was like the higher you speaking to you through symbolism, whether it be through something you read in your cards or um, just kind of noticing that. What's like an
Um,
point out?
well, there's so many times that it's happened that it's hard to reference, but it's come to a point in my practice where I will be, asking for guidance in some area or understanding in myself, and I will have an intuitive kind of feeling that something is going to come out, and then the card will pop out. And it's just like, it's more, rather than just being in a complete blankness and unawareness of what the possible answer could be, you start to like get these feelings. And then the tarot, moreover, will, or oracle, right, will confirm that hunch that you're feeling, like that hunch I'm feeling as I'm shuffling, as I'm repeating the question in my mind. So something came out yesterday that, uh, I can't remember what the card was, but it's happened so frequently that it's hard to like point a finger on it, you know? And it will happen sometimes in my readings where cards will pop out, and then I'll just have this uncontrollable urge to just smile and be like, well, I knew that card was going to come out. So, uh, it's 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 a tool to sharpen and your trust in your intuition, and to help you recognize that, yes, that feeling, that thought you're having, it's valid.
Mhm.
Trust it. And there have been many times in my own personal readings where I would question something that came out, and I would have this intuitive idea or notion, and then my ego would step in and doubt it, right? No, that wasn't it. That was just coincidence. And then I'll shuffle and pull a clarifier from the deck or another deck, and I will get a card that will completely confirm with specificity, like what I had initially thought and then doubted. So it's magical. I didn't suspect that I would get pulled into it. And there were other things in my life that were pulling me towards them and that I still feel strongly about, but the tarot would always pull me back. Um, I really, not necessarily tarot, but oracle in general, just imagery. And I've noticed as well, something that I critiqued myself a lot on when I first started the channel was that I don't necessarily look at the camera all the time. I spend a lot of time looking at the imagery. And I've learned that, well, that's me, and that's how I do it. I see a picture and a story as I focus in and soften my gaze and look at the images. So it's very easy for me to do that. And when I try to be, say like another reader that looks at the camera and does the faces and flicks the hair, like it just feels wrong to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, having those intuitive impressions or those hunches, yes, this is what it's saying, and then my ego coming in and questioning it, and then having a clarifier come out and be like, no, I meant that. Listen to what I said the first time.
Hmm.
So, yeah,
You said something really interesting in there, which was the difference between your intuition and your ego,
yes,
and learning to, trust your intuition and kind of understand your ego's like bullshit tests, I guess you could say.
yes. Hmm.
Do you have a certain way or method of putting yourself more in line, more in tune with your intuition and kind of getting the ego out of the way while you do this, or just like in certain moments? Do you have a certain like kind of like process that you do? Like, oh, I'm just gonna like breathe. I'm gonna visualize a certain thing. Is there anything that you do?
Well, I did initially. I say a very intentional and specific prayer that essentially affirms I'm speaking directly to my higher self, the universe, and that none other may interfere with this direct line of communication. And I call in my protection, my guides, spirit guides, ancestors, all of that of the highest white light, and ask for protection, guidance, support in me recognizing and trusting my intuition and speaking true, that which I am receiving, and speaking it as soon as it comes to me before the ego has time to think and to change it. I also ask for their help in removing any trickster spirits, energies, or entities that would seek to cause confusion, chaos, or harm, or otherwise alter what is coming direct from my intuition. And yeah, I do. I ground, I bring light in, I fortify that light in my sphere to the perimeter of my room and encase it with blue light that crystallizes. And as I'm reading, I repeat it and I speak and address my higher self and the universe. And when I'm doing my last kind of cut of the deck, I'll visualize light coming down from heaven to my heart, out my hands, and encasing the deck. So when I split it, it's white light. And I just know in my heart that whatever comes through, I trust it. And I speak right away what comes to me. Um, I have, I mean, it's commonly known in reading that if you think too much, you allow the ego to get in, and it changes the message. So it's important to speak what comes to you as soon as it comes to you, and that kind of weeds out the influence of the ego. And yeah, for me, a part of that process in making sure it's my intuition that's speaking rather than thoughts coming in is sticking with the imagery, with my eyes, and just, speaking it as it comes to me and following where my eyes are guided to go within, the layout of the cards. And it's more just a knowing. I through doing my high magic practice and also through my meditative practice, I can recognize pretty clearly when it's my ego that's trying to talk. Um, there's even, I mean, the ego never goes away. It's ever present. It's part of us. It's our little
Mhm.
buddy. We have to embrace it because it has a
Right.
purpose. But um, I even have doubts before I start readings that I know that I'm capable of. Like, what am I going to say? What if it doesn't come to me? What if I don't know the right words? And then I just had like, whoa, Natalie, sit down. You don't need to have the words because the
Right.
words are coming from a higher source. You just have to listen. You just have to be open. Um, and I think it's really important for me as an individual reader to be ever present and pursuant of my healing and working through the beliefs and all of my societal stuff and what I was raised with and healing stuff so that I become a clear channel so that I don't infuse my uh, whatever's there that needs to be addressed into these readings for people. And my focus with my channel has been more to be true to myself and true to the collective. And it's been magical because I will get these really beautiful long comments from people that just reinforce that, like, you're not just speaking gibberish, even though, after a reading, I'll be like, did that make sense? Like, is that going to connect with anyone? And then I'll have these people connect with the most random details or words that I chose to speak. And it's really magical. I love it. And it's just reinforcing that connectivity to, you know, we're all connected. Everything is connected. It doesn't matter time and space. Like people will comment on videos from 5 months ago and find relevance and a deep connection in the words. So I just love it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that my practice of my ritual and meditative practices help me to recognize and decipher the intuition from the loud, judgmental, fear-inducing ego, you
Hmm.
know. But it's ever present. It never goes away. You still have to work with it and you still have to keep it in check and you still have to keep learning, and practicing because as you evolve, the way in which the ego interjects will evolve too. So
Hmm.
yeah.
And there was something really important there that you stated, which was the main vehicle for this is imagination,
Yes.
and kind of learning to um, harness your imagination and also uh, push the ego out of the way is a practice in itself, and that is
Yes.
one of like the main points of practicing high magic and things like that. And it's
Yeah.
funny because the way that I relate to your ego being on all the time while you're trying to harness your imagination and stuff is like it's almost like being in the first floor of a house where you're in the living room and the TV is on and you're watching the TV. And the TV happens to be all of the egoic thoughts that are happening about all the data you've taken in with your life, and the TV is just kind of like trying to make sense of all of that. And if you're paying attention to the TV, if you're sitting on the couch and you're locked into the TV, it's like you're locked into what the ego is trying to make sense of. And when you finally kind of get up from the couch and you walk into a different room, and you know the TV is on and you can hear it, but you're paying attention to doing something else in another room, like, you know, cleaning the kitchen table off or whatever. It's like that's when you've you've disconnected yourself and you're focusing on another task and you're engaged in it, but you could still hear the TV in the background. And
Yep.
that's
Calling you.
that's yeah, that's kind of how I've described
I love that.
just learning how to practice that in general. That's a pretty easy concept to understand. And it's like
Yeah.
you're trying you're trying to basically understand that that TV is on all the time and it can be really loud, but you're not necessarily paying attention to it. You're paying attention to something else. And that takes a lot of practice to do.
It
Um,
does.
most, most people that you would meet, uh, nobody has ever taught them to try and get up from watching the TV and being glued to it
Yeah.
to do something else. And then some people naturally do it within whatever task they kind of get swept up by, or even if it's like an artistic endeavor.
Yeah.
Um, so saying that, you can kind of tell that I have a very mechanical mind, and I like to strip things apart in a very mechanical way, and that's
Yeah.
how I understand things. Um, what I would like you to do is take us through the structure of how you read, how you do a reading. Like how many cards are down? Why are there that many cards? What's the structure of the cards being down? And then how does the flow of the reading go through the number of cards that are down?
Okay. Well, it really depends on the focal point of the reading. And there's a lot of time that's spent towards prepping for readings that is off camera. And that is, I've used my experience and the path I've taken for realization, self-realization in areas of romance and areas in my spiritual seeking to kind of write out spreads that feel like they are relevant and really thought-inducing questions that cause you to go really deep in the way you think and look at yourself. And so I have several different spreads that I've written, and I really just feel, or I base what I do on intuitively what feels right.
Mm,
As when I put lights up behind me, I choose what I feel intuitively is the right color. So I use a combination of tarot and oracle. I do love the imagery of tarot, and I have several decks, but I feel like oracle it takes you beyond the confines and the structure of the tarot to more in-depth and insightful clarifier type cards. Also cards that can be used, to be taken and then clarified by the tarot,
mhm,
and on the other hand. So it really just depends on what the spread is that I'm doing. And yeah, I intuitively select the cards and the decks in my spreads based on the questions. And I'll grab a couple of decks and kind of shuffle through them and see what cards come out for myself or for the collective and just see which ones make the most sense. And it's really it can take some time, just really selecting the right decks for the questions that really align with the energy and the intention. So my intention with what I do is I want people to look inward. I want them to shift the gaze from seeking outwardly for answers, trying to find it in the answers in people, in circumstances, and all that, to shift more inward to the inner stage, right? Of what your mind is doing, what you're thinking about, what beliefs you're entertaining, conscious or unconscious, recognizing if there are unconscious things that could be pulling the strings, and kind of prompting people to ask themselves these questions or to hear these messages from spirit that really start to get them to shift and turn around to looking at the self. In my opinion, I think the self is where everything starts. It's where the answers are.
mhm,
And I every time with readings, I always think that line, the kingdom of God lies within. Every time you feel that confusion and that want to go outward or that inability to run away from your chaos, it's because you're being told to go a different direction, right? And that is typically to turn inward, to find the stillness and the peace so that you can get, guidance from that higher version of you that can see what you're going through with perfect clarity.
mhm,
And I got a deck that I really love, and I was actually referencing it and learning it yesterday. I've kind of been reading over the content on it. It's called Archetypes, and I don't have it with me. It's in the other room, but it is the one who created it is he's just a brilliant poetic writer with a very deep and mechanical mind. And it's so funny. I was trying to explain archetypes to my mom and what they were, and the mechanical way for me to explain that, which I think comes from me being a Gemini moon and just needing to explain things and understand things, is I was like, imagine you're a car, right? And in life, if you're driving on the freeway, you're gonna go to what, fifth or sixth gear, and you're just gonna that's the gear you're gonna be in. But if
Mhm.
you're going to the mountains and you're off-roading and rock climbing up there, you're gonna need to maybe shift down to a different gear, your first or second gear. It's just
Right.
like archetypes are essentially what you tap into depending on what life is presenting with you and which part of yourself you need to harness and embody to operate and maneuver through that. So I totally get that mechanical thing, but I'm going off topic. Bring me back,
No,
Jamie.
no, you're not going off topic. You're just kind of expanding on something that's very important, which is
Yeah,
there is a certain kind of roadmap for this, and there are certain um, tools to use that embody certain ideas for, you know,
yeah,
your mind to understand. And what I'm hearing is that the whatever your intention is, there's a certain spread that's going to
yeah,
help that intention, make itself a little bit more known. So
yeah,
let's do this. Let's let's do a reading about the general energy of the planet right now and why it's so chaotic or why it seems so chaotic and where the chaos is taking us.
mm,
Does that make
that's good.
sense? Does that
Yeah, that
help?
makes sense.
So, like asking that question is going to dictate here's the spread we're going to use, right?
Okay.
Here's the deck I'm going to use. Here's the cards we're going to use. Because I think anyone who's watching this can relate to this year so far has been
Yeah,
chaotic on
it
so many
has.
levels. Yeah.
It's
And
been wild.
yeah.
Um, okay, so I have a tarot deck that we can clarify stuff on, but I can't remember the name of this. I think it's called Sacred Traveler or something, but this is a deck that I just looked over and it just feels right. So I want to pull a couple of cards. But since I'm not doing a reading, I haven't really done any preparation, so I would just say a little prayer, and I'll say it out loud this time so you
Do
can
your
kind of
thing.
hear what it sounds
Do your
like.
thing. Because I'm
Okay.
learning your process while you do this. And this is the part that's
I'm, I'm
interesting to
sharing
me.
all my secrets.
Well, yeah.
Okay, so um, I call upon heaven with so much light and love. I ask that you guide me for my highest good and the highest good of the collective of listeners who will come to this reading. May I speak true and clear the guidance you give me. And I affirm I speak to my higher self, to heaven through my higher self, and that none other may answer in place of my higher self. I invite my higher dimensional helpers of the highest white light to be present and to guide me through this reading and help me to recognize and trust my intuition and to speak true. And I also ask for your support in the healing of this message, any healing that can come from it. I ask for your support in removing any trickster spirits, energies, or entities that would seek to cause confusion, chaos, or harm, and otherwise alter the reading. And may this reading reach a vast and wide collective of listeners and help them to expand and to grow and to illuminate and to understand. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, Spirit. What is the overall energy of the world at this time? And how can you help us understand the chaos and this convergence energy, this transition energy into something we can't see? What is it? Help us to understand it. Overcoming obstacles, the sword and the stone, and faraway places. Get ready for new horizons.
Ooh,
So let's see if you can see these.
they're
And this just
beautiful
feels like,
cards.
I know I love them, huh?
Yeah.
I like this sword and the stone. It just feels like the mind is wedged into dense, heavy consciousness.
Hmm.
And overcoming the obstacles is pulling out and pulling the mind out of that denseness and allowing it to flow and to go towards something that is lighter, that is more expansive, that is more evolved, that is more unified, that is more abundant. I see all of these bins here with grains, kind of like a market. And it just feels like a transition from heavier times, a treacherous path we've been on, that there's a great shift that is shadowing everyone. But I see this bird next to this sword, right? And birds represent the love of God and heaven and lightness. And I feel like this is a messenger that is kind of speaking to the mind, that is helping to get through the denseness, to guide the collective, to guide us through this heavy egoic way of separating from the soul and the purpose, to reconnecting with the higher, right? To reconnecting with something that is innate within us, that is more strong within us, that this way of life has pulled us towards and away from our true authentic selves, our soul. And I feel in this card there is water, and this feels like a more emotional time. And I'm kind of pulled to this too, because in my life, what I'm being shown is I've been drawn to a lot of water sign individuals, many Cancer people and Scorpios. And for me, I've always connected with fire signs. So this is a shift in me to enter more into the heart, to take right out of the mind and more towards this water energy, this heart, this Christ consciousness, this unification. Mm. And that's what I get from that. So I'll show you these again. And if there's anything that you see in them.
Well, I, you know, I think you answered something in an indirect way, which is at this moment in time, there's certain people that understand empathy and certain people that don't.
Mm,
And there's a certain perspective that's saying um, empathy is weakness and you need to be tough and you need to pull yourself up by your bootstraps and yada, yada, yada.
and that feels like this heaviness, this
Right,
egoic, um, guided way of life that we are, breaking away from.
right. And yeah, there is a certain time to understand your own strength and overcome challenges.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But the highest form of intelligence is empathy, understanding
Mhm.
things from a different perspective.
Mhm.
Because the thing that separates us from robots is the ability to feel
Yeah.
empathy, right? So there's like I said, there's what I see right now is like two opposite ends of a spectrum, which sees empathy and compassion as weakness, and then the other side seeing empathy and compassion as the way forward. And I tend to be on the empathy and compassion train for us to move forward because
Absolutely.
there's as chaotic as it is right now, I see I see that chaos as things that have been buried within the subconscious of everybody coming up from the bottom right
It's
now
light.
over
Yeah.
the top, and we're seeing like just all the deep dark stuff. Um,
Yeah.
but at some point, that's going to run out.
Yeah. And isn't
Where,
that a gift? Isn't that beautiful to think? It
yeah,
won't last forever.
it can't. So, nothing lasts forever. But my question would be, why were only two cards pulled? Would there?
That was my intention to pull
Okay,
two. It
okay.
felt like the right number.
S-
And I was brought to something that you had said, and I should have probably spoke it when you were there or when you were there. What was it? Oh, get ready for new horizons, faraway places. And that felt like when you had said the new perspective, seeing things from the eyes of another, right?
mhm.
How can I see this differently than the way that I've always seen it, which has led me to where I am in this dense heaviness, right? I feel like these discomforts and this roadblock that we're all experiencing. And I feel also number five came to me as you were saying chaos. This is a time of like great change, and it's unforeseen, and people weren't expecting it. At least some of us, right, that don't follow astrology very closely. But there's not just in my own, but in my son's, in my family's life, in people that I know, there's been great upheaval, and people are going through some very heavy realizations and illuminations in themselves. So this is a great five, represents change, shifts. And that just came to me that faraway places, this perspective that we're being called to see is on the other side of this heavy egoic thing that we have to pull ourselves out of, and that each individual person is having that done and thrown upon them in their the own unique way of their own path, you know. So okay, I just wanted to say that because it came to me.
No, that's it. If anything else comes to you, please like block me out and just say it.
Okay, like Jamie, shh,
Yeah, yeah,
just kidding.
because um I that's the thing that's most interesting to me is like when those the you know what I mean? That it just pops in
Yeah,
your head and it's like, no, this is it right now. That's because that is your intuition, just like pushing the ego out of the way.
yeah,
But it's interesting that you picked up on water in the card because um a water represents our emotions and everything like that. And right now
yeah,
we're in a time in history where um, just by uh, how we progressed as a society and how we intake data these days is through screens,
hmm,
and a lot of that can be very emotionally charged. It
yeah,
can hit buttons very easily, and I see that as um, one of the best teachers actually because when you look
yeah,
beyond that, you have to understand that if you're going to be emotionally charged by everything that you see, then you're going to get really worn out.
yeah,
So there's a moment where you have to step back and say, why am I feeling so much? Where is it coming from? Why
yeah,
are my buttons being pushed every day? Um, So, and of course, what you, our screens are set up so that what you pay attention to is what you get more of.
yeah.
So it's funny because uh, it's almost like, well,
Universal law. Just
it is universal law, but it's almost like, well, do you enjoy getting hit in the face by pies? Or do you turn your gaze someplace else so you don't get hit in the face with a pie?
yeah,
Because that's kind of what the screen is geared to do. It's geared
yeah,
to get a rise out of you and then keep paying attention to the screen and
yeah,
scroll and shop
yeah,
and buy. And one of one of the most important things is something that both of us has learned is to hone the skills of your imagination
yeah,
and really get in tune with yourself, you have to turn away from the screen.
Yeah.
You have to turn the screen off. You
Yeah.
have to be alone with yourself. You have to be alone with your thoughts.
Hey,
You have to be comfortable with that. Yeah.
this was at the bottom of the deck.
Solitude.
Yep. And as I was called to look at it, right?
Yeah.
You have to go into that quietness by yourself and face all the chaos.
Hmm.
A lot of people don't want to. So
No.
they chase the clickbait and the doom scrolling and the fear porn and all the stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And it's, you know, I'm really comfortable with being alone.
Me too.
I'm so I do well by myself. I really do. And that can be very difficult for so many people to
Yeah.
be with themselves and not be stimulated by things. But that's where you really get to know yourself.
Yeah, it
That's
truly is.
yeah, yeah. And one of the one of the things that I talk about, like within this spectrum of third eye wellness, is uh, the use of plant teachers and so on and so forth, and also meditation and different meditation techniques and stuff like that. But again, what it really points you in the direction of is solitude. You have
Yeah.
to learn to be by yourself to know yourself. Because if there's too much stimulation happening, well, that's actually pulling you away from this part of yourself, which is really important, which is the thing that's supposed to be guiding you through this entire experience.
Yes. Yeah.
That and uh, that can take us into a whole different set of conversations, which is um, a lot of that is intentional to drag you off of the path of
Yeah.
yourself
Absolutely.
because people would like to harness your life force and attention to feed into their vortex that they're trying to create, their reality matrix that they're trying to create, which might not necessarily be what your higher mind or higher self had in store for you, and you just may have gotten swept up in somebody else's, reality vortex, which is, I think, a lot of what we see these days. It's very easy to get swept up by your phone, by your screen, by whatever's around you these days. But it's incredibly difficult for people to turn it off and turn inward
Yeah.
because that that can be, getting really honest with yourself uh, is a very hard thing to do, and um, people like to run away from that.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
agree. Um, I was thinking, even in like I'm not on social media outside of YouTube, and I haven't been since like 2015 or 16, I want to say.
it's a
And
circus.
it's yeah, it puts you in a different energy or experience from other people, you know?
Mhm.
So,
It
oh God.
does, and you're like, since since you're not involved in any of that, and like, so I am because of my history with being in the fitness industry and also being, in the music industry, we'll say, is, a musician and stuff. You kind of have to be, uh, you have to have a presence in that world.
Yeah, absolutely. And it does serve a purpose. And
Yeah.
it is just, it's like everything in life. It's your
Hmm.
intention, right? And it's your awareness and
Yeah.
it's how you use it. And I think there are absolutely ways to use it that are beneficial and beautiful and good and helpful to the collective and to life. So by all means, you don't have to explain it. I just thought it was unhealthy for me. Yeah, being involved in that. And I I love to learn. And so my how things and how going out of balance affects me is like it yanks me in all these different directions, like high magic and breath work. And I want to do tarot and I want to learn about emotional intelligence and I want to learn about astrology. And I'm like, whoa, come back. Like you can't learn it all right now. Just pick one, you know? And
Right.
so it's just a myriad of ways that life and this experience can shift you out of balance. And just has to be an awareness of like what it feels like when you're in that chaos, and that chaos is there for a reason, right? Or that physical discomfort is there for a reason. Our bodies and our in our minds communicate with us to tell us where you stand right now in your path. And it's my belief that the more you veer away off something that's not aligned with your soul and your purpose, the more you feel out of peace and out of harmony and in that chaos and in that discomfort, and you can find the solace that you need. And that right there is just like that is the gift. It might feel like misery, but that's actually the gift that says you're not where you need to be.
Yeah.
Take a step back, regroup, center what's happening, what's pulling you away from what really matters, you know? Um, it's a dance that we'll all do until the day we leave, you know,
Yeah. hmm
for sure.
Yeah, alignment is
Yeah.
is the word, right? To pay attention to, and it's like understanding what that means is very important because,
Yeah.
like you said, if you're not aligned and you're going through A, B, and C, and you fall, it's easy to fall into victim mentality.
Yes.
Any one of us can do it. It's super easy. It's just there, and you're just like, why me, right? And then that just sparks, you just spiral out in this direction of what did I do, this, that, the other, and it's like, no, it all this is saying to you is you're out of alignment with yourself, and you really have to get honest with yourself about what you want to experience and why,
Yeah.
and that in itself is a really that's that's a practice in itself to understand like what how you separate all these indoctrinated beliefs that your ego is telling you to do versus what the real you is trying to tell you.
Yeah.
And I find that the real you doesn't need that much. It doesn't need anything. It's just pointing you in this direction of, so I'm just reminding you. Like
Yeah. It's
what I'm doing is I'm pointing you down this direction for you to remember why you're doing this and who you are.
yeah.
And usually that negates like all these all these like wants and desires that your ego is telling you that you need to be happy, right? So
Yeah.
like one of the things that I remind myself daily, and I think it's important for people to remind themselves daily, is that like you're enough. You've always been enough and you'll always be enough. You're just kind of having this experience that tells you that you need to be more than you are. But
Yeah.
the thing is, you came from something that was everything. And you're just kind of having this experience of like being a drop that is momentarily not attached to it, even though you embody everything that is in that drop, from where you came
Magical.
from. Yeah. And it's 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 such an easy thing that answers so many questions that people might have in life. Like for instance, like right now I see us as this we're this period of chaos. We're starting to enter this period of time where I've heard it being referred to as we're entering the age of oligarchs, right?
Mm.
And what is an oligarch? An oligarch is someone who doesn't believe that they have enough, so they just need more and more and more and more and more, right?
Yeah.
And um, one of my friends, raised the question of like, what is an ethical billionaire? Can can you be ethical as a billionaire? And then you start to think about how much money $1 billion is, right?
Yeah.
And how, if you're a normal person, a normal like working class person, you would need people to help you spend that $1 billion through the course of your life,
Yeah.
to spend it all on frivolous stuff,
Yeah.
right? That would be a full-time job in itself, like a completely hedonistic experience of you just blowing that $1 billion on whatever wants, desires, and needs you have.
Yeah.
So it just goes to show it's like, well, what is enough? And enough, there's no monetary value of enough.
Yeah.
Enough is an understanding. Enough is an understanding that you're not separate from anything and that
Yeah.
you're just a feedback loop for everything to express itself. So,
Um,
and that goes back into what I was saying earlier about how there's two sides of the spectrum right now, and one side is empathy and compassion, and the other is empathy and compassion is weakness, right?
yeah.
So you can only understand empathy and compassion if you can understand the concept of being enough.
Yeah.
Because if you understand the concept of being enough, well, then you can help provide,
Yeah.
right? And it's only the fear of being weak or not being enough that means I will not be able to provide,
Yeah.
right? So it goes into all these philosophical questions about what we're taught, what we're made to believe, and why.
Jamie,
And
that was what I felt. My ego, in response to you telling me, let's do this discussion, I was like, am I enough? Do I know enough? Can
but
I give back?
yeah,
And I was
and
like, stop it. But
that's
yes, I think
that's the point.
yeah, what is the point of listening to that? We are all enough. We're all exactly where we're supposed to be. We know what we're supposed to know, and we're just meant to focus on the now. And what can you do now that feels in alignment with what your soul is calling you towards? And that's, the illusion is everything that pulls us away from this breath we're taking right now and this, drive we have to do what it is that we're being called to do. There's so many distractions, and I think it takes a certain type of evolved soul to pull away from all these distractions and to see through the smoke and mirrors and the illusion and the fog towards the true calling. And I often get reminded in terms of thinking about the ego and the soul, right? um I think of, what is it in Lord of the Rings, where is it Aragorn or whatever. Viggo Mortensen is sitting in that like divey bar where the hobbits first go to meet Gandalf, and they're talking about how I want a pint, and he has a pint, I want a pint, and then
Hmm.
he's just like, I see Aragorn as the soul sitting in the corner, just observing and watching, right? And shaking its head at the behavior of these unaware hobbits, just like tripping over themselves and just causing chaos, right?
Hmm.
Until the soul finally has to step in and create some shifts, and that feels like what's happening right now, right? It's like, all right, the ego has had its chance to just do whatever it needed to do. It's time to bring us back to union and what we're supposed to be doing here. It's time to reconnect to that that line of communication that exists with the higher realms, right? And to see past the illusion of that we're all our own selves, and to see that we're all connected, and that everything we do and everything we think and all the actions we take do have a ripple effect that connects and affects everything. And we all have a part to play, even if the ego fools us into thinking we're small. And what we do doesn't matter. It does, right?
Hmm.
And each one teach one. As we evolve and we expand, we can then reach our completion and have enough and take that overflow of what we have learned and how we've expanded, and we can share that and gift that and illuminate darkness for others through our experiences. And yeah, I think that we're in the midst of life is showing us this is the path. And this is also simultaneously what has kept you from your path, this
Mm.
denseness, this ego, right? And this illusion that all it's just a drop, right? And I also see in this card there is just desert and it's very dry and barren, right? But on the other side of that path is the abundance, is the connectivity. And like at a marketplace, right? People come together, they share what they've learned, their their harvest. And it's beautiful when we come together because that's where our power is in this experience, unity. And I love it. I love it. Like you and I meeting at the Damien Eccles retreat on different ends of, or from different ends of the United States. That person on their path, going through their darkness and coming out on the other side of it, um, on their path in a real beautiful way, has a ripple effect of bringing other people together. And then here we are doing this channel, and
Yep.
it's cool.
And that's
I love it.
that's we'll close it up with that. And what I think is that in itself should be a lesson for anybody who's watching or anybody who's getting anything from this. The underlying theme is if you were truly in alignment with yourself and you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, well, then that has ripple effects on the rest of the world that can show
Exactly.
them if you get in alignment with yourself, well, then you can create some harmony in the wake of your actions, you know?
I believe it with my heart and soul.
All right. Well, Natalie, thank
Jamie.
you so much for being on the within the beginnings of this thing that is called Third Eye Wellness. And I think we've really touched on a lot of what the idea of Third Eye Wellness is,
Yep, and I
which
love
is
it.
being in alignment with yourself. Because if you're not in alignment with yourself, well, then how can you actually be well?
It's true.
Yeah.
You got to take all the layers of all the crap that you think you are off and
Hmm.
find out this beautiful, incredible superhero of an existence is underneath it all, right? You're tapped into everything, the potential of everything, and the possibility of everything. But the illusion is what keeps you from that. So let us all seek that, find out who we really are underneath all these illusions and lies and beliefs and the BS. And
Yes, yes, yes.
I'm honored to be on your podcast. Thank you.
I am going to link your YouTube channel, um, so people can tune into your YouTube channel, and I tune into it because I think it's really interesting.
Thank
And
you.
until next time, because we're gonna have more to talk about, and
We will.
we're gonna do this again.
I would love that.
All
Say
right?
when.
I will trust me. We're gonna do it again at some point soon. So
Awesome.
I'm gonna close it up, and thank you so much.
Yeah. We'll see you soon. Bye, Jamie.
Bye.